They left for the big family trip, 4 cars, 17 people, 1 group chat without me. I woke up to an empty house. When I called, Mom said, "We thought you were in the van with your cousins." I said nothing. 2 hours later, my sister accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for her friend. "He's really not here? OMG. Our plan worked." I just replied, "Merry Christmas." Then I quietly canceled the $15,500 booking. And then came step 2, a T6:30 a.m. I had 103 missed calls. One said to, "My name is Natalie Morgan, and at 27, I never expected to wake up to an empty house on Christmas morning." The silence hit me first. No coffee brewing, no holiday music, no voices. Just stillness where family chaos should be. Leftover breakfast dishes in the sink, cars gone from the driveway, and not a single note explaining why. Our annual Christmas trip. 17 people, 4 cars, and not one of them remembered me. Or so they claimed. If you've ever felt invisible to the people who should see you most, let me know where you're watching from, and subscribe for what happened next. Growing up in the Morgan family meant you were never alone, whether you wanted to be or not. My parents, Margaret and Thomas, had 3 children. My older sister, Amanda, me in the middle, and my younger brother, Kyle. Then there were the aunts, uncles, and cousins, who might as well have lived with us considering how often they were around. Being the middle child was exactly like every stereotype you've heard. Amanda was the golden child, valedictorian, perfect in every way. Kyle was the baby, charming and spoiled. And me? I was just there. The reliable one. The one who remembered birthdays, organized gatherings, and kept the peace when family tensions flared. Our Christmas trips had been a tradition for 10 years. What started as a small getaway with just our immediate family grew into an extended family extravaganza. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and even some close family friends. Last year we had 16 people. This year would be 17 with the addition of my sister's fiancé. I was always the family helper. Need someone to research locations? Ask Natalie. Need accommodations booked? Natalie will handle it. Need someone to remember everyone's dietary restrictions, medication schedules, and entertainment preferences? That's what Natalie's for. Despite being overlooked, I cherish these trips. Last year, in the Smoky Mountains, we rented cabins side by side. Aunt Susan and I spent an entire evening baking cookies, while Uncle Robert taught the younger cousins card games. Mom actually complimented my Christmas tree decorations, and Dad asked my opinion on his retirement plans. For once, I felt seen. But family dynamics shift like sand under the tide, and the past 6 months brought significant changes. Amanda got engaged to Ryan, a financial analyst with family money and connections. Their engagement party was an extravagant affair, with Mom crying happy tears and Dad boasting to everyone about his brilliant daughter. Kyle had been accepted to Princeton, his dream school, and suddenly my parents became Princeton parents, wearing university gear and talking about when Kyle graduates, even though he hadn't even started classes yet. Meanwhile, my promotion to senior account manager at the marketing firm where I'd worked for 5 years barely received a "that's nice" from Mom. Dad asked if it came with a raise, but seemed disappointed when I explained that the significant bump would happen after my 6-month review. New additions to our extended family had created shifting alliances too. Cousin Rachel had married Jackson, who quickly became my uncle's new fishing buddy. Aunt Karen had a new boyfriend, Terry, who bonded with my dad over their shared love of vintage cars. Everyone seemed to be pairing up or finding new connections while I remained the family utility player, useful, but not essential. Still, I was excited about this year's trip. I'd been promoted, saved up vacation days, and was ready to share my success with my family. Maybe this would be the year they'd see me as more than just the helpful middle child. This year's trip was my suggestion. A beautiful resort in the Colorado mountains. I found it, booked it, and as usual, put the $15,500 on my credit card, with promises from everyone to reimburse me at Christmas. The resort had private cabins surrounding a main lodge, an ice skating rink, ski trails, and a renowned restaurant for Christmas dinner. We had 3 family meetings about the trip. I presented activities, accommodation options, and transportation logistics. Everyone seemed enthusiastic, especially about the snowmobiling and sledding options. We decided to drive rather than fly, making it a road trip adventure. 4 vehicles would make the 20-hour journey, splitting up family members in a way that would minimize the inevitable squabbles. I handled most logistics. I created packing lists tailored to each family member. I researched and booked activities. I arranged the Christmas gift exchange. I even prepared card games and playlists for the drive. The reservation was under my name, paid with my credit card. I'd done everything to ensure this would be our best Christmas trip yet. Looking back, the warning signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. Conversations would stop abruptly when I entered rooms. Text messages about trip details would go unanswered for hours, sometimes days. Smaller family gatherings happened without me being invited. 2 weeks before the trip, I overheard my mother and sister whispering in the kitchen. When I walked in, Amanda quickly changed the subject to Christmas cookies. When I asked what they were discussing, Mom just smiled and said, "Christmas surprises, nothing for you to worry about." A few days later, my mother asked to borrow my credit card as a backup for the trip. When I asked why, she became flustered and said, "In case we need to make changes to the reservation." Since the reservation was already in my name and on my card, the request made no sense, but I let it go. The night before departure, everyone was supposed to be ready by 7 in the morning. I stayed up until nearly 2 organizing last-minute details, wrapping a few final gifts, and making sure everything was perfect. I set my alarm for 5:30, planning to shower and finish packing my toiletries before helping load the cars. When I woke up, sunlight was streaming through my blinds, bright, high-in-the-sky sunlight. My heart sank as I grabbed my phone. 9:15. How had I slept through my alarm? I jumped out of bed, already calling out apologies as I rushed toward the hallway. The house was silent. Not the peaceful silence of early morning, but the hollow silence of emptiness. I called out again, louder this time, hearing my voice echo back to me. "Mom? Dad? Is anyone still here?" I checked my parents' room first. Bed made, nothing on the nightstands, closet door open with visible gaps where luggage had been. Amanda's room next. Same thing. Kyle's room looked like a tornado had hit it, but his Christmas backpack and gaming console were gone. All the signs of the whirlwind that was my brother preparing for a trip. With each empty room, my chest tightened a little more. I ran downstairs, checking the living room, dining room, kitchen. Christmas decorations still twinkled mockingly. In the kitchen, breakfast dishes were piled in the sink. They'd eaten before leaving. Together. Without waking me, I rushed to the front door and threw it open. The driveway where 4 cars should have been parked was empty except for my Honda. They were gone. All of them. I stood barefoot on the cold porch, breath forming clouds in the December air as the reality sank in. They'd left me behind. My hands trembled as I walked back inside, grabbing my phone from my bedroom. I scrolled through my notifications. Nothing from my family. No missed calls. No texts asking where I was or if I was okay. I called my mother's cell. It rang 4 times before she answered, her voice bright and cheerful. "Natalie? Good morning, sweetheart. Did you just wake up?" The background noise was unmistakable. Christmas music, multiple conversations, laughter. They were well on their way, probably hours into the drive already. "You left without me," I said, my voice smaller than I intended. A pause. "What? No. We wait. Aren't you in the van with your cousins?" My throat tightened. "No, ma'am. I'm at home. Alone. I overslept, and you all left without me." Another pause, longer this time. I heard her muffled voice as she presumably covered the phone to speak to someone else. When she returned, her tone had changed, less cheerful, more concerned, but something about it rang false. "Oh, Natalie. There must have been a miscommunication. We all thought you were in Rachel's van with the cousins. I'm so sorry, sweetie." From somewhere in the background, I heard my father's voice. "Tell her we'll figure something out." "Did anyone check if I was in the van?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Did anyone look for me before you left?" Well, it was hectic. You know how mornings like this are? Everyone was rushing around. I guess we just assumed. "You assumed," I repeated flatly. 17 people. And not one of you noticed I wasn't there. Not during breakfast. Not during loading the cars. Not during the head count I specifically suggested we do before leaving. "Natalie, don't be like that. It was an honest mistake." We'll figure something out. Maybe you can catch a flight and meet us there? I have to go now. The reception is getting spotty. I'll call you back in a bit, okay? The call ended before I could respond. I stood in my pajamas in the middle of the kitchen, phone in hand, staring at nothing. They'd left without me. And from the sound of it, they'd been on the road for hours before I even woke up. I tried to be rational. Maybe it was an honest mistake. Mornings like that are chaotic. Maybe everyone really did think I was in one of the other vehicles. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop, searching for flights to Colorado. The prices for last-minute Christmas travel made me wince, but if this was truly a misunderstanding, I could make it work. While searching for flights, I called my Aunt Patricia, who had opted out of the trip this year due to a hip replacement. Aunt Pat, it's Natalie. Sorry to bother you, but something strange happened. I explained the situation, hoping for sympathy, or at least surprise. Instead, there was an uncomfortable pause. "Oh, sweetie," she finally said, her voice gentle but awkward. "I'm sure it was just confusion in all the excitement. Did you talk to Mom this morning or Amanda?" Another pause. Rachel called to say they were on the road. She mentioned everyone was having a good time. Did she mention me at all? Not specifically, no. Aunt Pat, do you know something you're not telling me? Her sigh was heavy. Natalie, I don't want to get in the middle of family matters. I'm sure whatever happened, it's all a misunderstanding. Why don't you call your mother again? The conversation left me with a sinking feeling. I opened Instagram and saw Amanda had already posted photos from the road trip, group selfies in the car, a breakfast stop at a diner, everyone smiling, laughing, enjoying the beginning of our family Christmas trip without me. I scrolled through the comments. Cousin Rachel, best Christmas trip ever, starting off right. Kyle, road trip vibes. Mom, so blessed to have almost everyone together. They almost struck me like a slap. She knew I wasn't there. It wasn't a mistake. I switched to Facebook and saw similar posts from other family members. Then I noticed something else. Several comments reference messages from a group chat I wasn't part of. Just like we planned, Operation Road Trip is a go. I searched my phone for group chat about the trip, but found nothing. They had created a separate conversation without me. The pieces were starting to form a disturbing picture, but I still couldn't bring myself to believe what it suggested. I spent the next 2 hours alternating between checking flights, calling family members who didn't answer, and fighting back tears of confusion and hurt. My mother hadn't called back as promised. Then my phone pinged with a text from Amanda. I opened it to find a screenshot of a conversation. The screenshot showed several messages, but one was highlighted. "He's really not here? OMG, our plan worked." Mom kept asking if we should wait, but I told her he was probably still sleeping. Got to admit, I feel a little bad, but after last year's drama, we deserve a peaceful Christmas. Below the screenshot, Amanda had typed, "Oops, wrong person. Ignore that." I stared at the message, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. He's not here. He, not she. They didn't even see me as a person, just a problem to be solved. And our plan worked, left no room for misinterpretation. This wasn't an accident. They had planned to leave without me. I replied with just 2 words, "Merry Christmas." Then I put my phone down and let the tears I'd been fighting finally fall. 2 hours passed while I sat in stunned silence. Amanda's screenshot burned into my memory. "He's really not here? OMG, our plan worked." The words replayed on a loop, each repetition a fresh wound. My family hadn't forgotten me. They had actively excluded me. My phone had been buzzing intermittently with messages from Amanda. "Natalie, it's not what it looks like. Please call me so I can explain. That message wasn't about you. You're taking this the wrong way." I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into our family's shared cloud storage. We used it for photos and documents, but also backed up conversations from various devices. Amanda was particularly bad about this, always selecting backup everything whenever prompted without considering what might be included. In the folder with her name, I found backup files of her text messages from the past month. I hesitated only briefly before opening them. What I found confirmed my worst fears, and then some. A series of conversations between Amanda and various family members about the Natalie situation. Plans to create a separate group chat without me. Discussions about how to ensure I wouldn't be included on the trip. From Amanda to Mom, 3 weeks ago. Do we really have to bring Natalie? Last year, she ruined Christmas with all her drama. Mom's reply, she did book everything. And it's on her credit card. Amanda. So we let her book it and then figure out a way to leave without her. Win-win. Another conversation, this time with Kyle. Mom's worried about leaving Natalie behind. Kyle's response? Just leave before she wakes up. She sleeps like the dead anyway. By the time she realizes we're gone, we'll be halfway to Colorado. The most hurtful was a group text where they had actually voted on whether to include me. The final tally, 3 for bringing me, 12 against, with 2 abstentions. My own parents had voted against me. Mom had initially defended me. She is family. And she did arrange everything. But she'd quickly given in to the group pressure. I suppose you're right. It would be more relaxing without having to manage her feelings all the time. Manage my feelings? I whispered to the empty room. The drama they referred to from last Christmas? That was when I'd finally stood up for myself after Cousin Mike made yet another joke about me being perpetually single. I'd calmly asked him to stop, pointing out that his comments were hurtful. That was it. No yelling, no scene, just a simple request for respect. But, apparently, that was too much drama for my family to handle. As I dug deeper, years of injustice surfaced in my memory. The time I gave up my bedroom for a week when relatives visited, sleeping on the couch while Amanda refused to share her larger room. This summer I worked 2 jobs to help pay for family expenses when Dad was between positions, only to have my parents spend the money on a new car for Kyle when he got his license. The countless times my achievements were minimized while my siblings were celebrated. I remembered how last Christmas, I'd offered to help Mom in the kitchen, and she'd snapped at me that I was doing it wrong, only to praise Amanda's identical technique minutes later. How Dad had interrupted me mid-sentence during the gift exchange to point out something Kyle was doing. How Aunt Susan had accidentally left me out of the family photo, and no one had noticed until I mentioned it. I'd always been the family scapegoat, but until now I'd never realized how deliberate it was. I'd given them the benefit of the doubt, made excuses for their behavior, rationalized that families are complicated and no one is perfect. I thought about the financial sacrifices I'd made for them. When my parents struggled with mortgage payments 3 years ago, I'd given them $8,000 from my savings, money I'd been putting aside for a down payment on my own place. That loan was never repaid. When Kyle needed a laptop for school, I bought it. When Amanda's car needed repairs, I covered them. And, this trip, the $15,500 booking that I had placed on my credit card. Every year I handled the booking, and every year the family promised to reimburse me at Christmas. Sometimes they did, partially. More often, excuses were made about tight budgets and promises of paying me back soon that never materialized. I tried calling different family members. My father's phone went straight to voicemail. Carl texted that he was in the middle of something and would call later. Aunt Susan read my message but didn't respond. Uncle Robert's phone rang and rang with no answer. Finally, Cousin Rachel picked up. "Natalie, hey, what's up?" "Rachel, I need you to be honest with me. Did everyone intentionally leave without me this morning?" A long pause. "I don't know what you're talking about. Please don't lie to me. Not you too." She sighed. "Look, it wasn't my idea, okay? Amanda and Kyle organized the whole thing. They said you're always complaining and making everything difficult. They convinced everyone it would be more fun without you. And you went along with it? What was I supposed to do? It was majority rule. You could have stood up for me. You could have at least warned me. And risk being excluded too? I'm sorry, Natalie. That's just how family dynamics work sometimes." I hung up without saying goodbye. Then I went to my childhood bedroom, closed the door, and broke down completely. Years of being overlooked, dismissed, and taken for granted crashed over me like a tidal wave. I curled up on my bed and sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes burned. As the December afternoon darkened into evening, I cycled through shock, denial, and bargaining. Maybe if I apologized for whatever perceived wrongs I'd committed, they'd welcome me. Maybe if I offered to stay in a separate cabin and give them space, they'd let me come. Maybe if I tried harder to be what they wanted, they'd finally accept me. But as night fell, those thoughts gave way to anger. White-hot, clarifying anger that burned away the fog of self-doubt I'd lived in for so long. After hours of crying, I felt strangely calm. empty, but clear-headed. I called Rachel back. "I need the complete truth," I said when she answered. "No sugar-coating. No protecting anyone's feelings? What exactly did they say about me?" Rachel hesitated, then sighed. "They said you're too sensitive, that you make everything about yourself, that you're controlling about the trip details and it's exhausting. Amanda said holidays would be more relaxing without you there questioning everything and getting your feelings hurt." "And my parents? What did they say?" "Your mom tried to defend you at first, but Amanda kept bringing up last Christmas, calling it the incident. Eventually, your mom agreed it might be easier without you. Your dad just went along with whatever your mom decided." "And the plan was what, exactly?" "To leave before you woke up. Tell you it was a mistake if you called. Claim they thought you were in another car. By the time you figured it out, we'd be too far away for you to join us." The confirmation hit like a physical blow, but I remained calm. "Thank you for being honest, Natalie. I'm sorry. I should have said something." "Yes, you should have," I replied, then ended the call. I sat on the edge of my bed, letting the full weight of my family's betrayal sink in. Not just today, but years of it. Years of being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who gave and gave while receiving so little in return. Years of telling myself it was normal, that family relationships are complicated, that love isn't always expressed in obvious ways. But this wasn't love. This was exploitation. This was emotional abuse. This was a family that had decided I was worth less than the others, that my feelings didn't matter, that I could be discarded when inconvenient. "Enough," I whispered to my empty room. "Enough." I moved to my desk and opened my laptop again. I navigated to the resort's website and logged into my account. There it was. The reservation in my name. $15,500 for the premium Christmas package. 6 cabins around a central lodge, all activities included, special Christmas dinner and events, the works. I'd been saving for this trip all year. The family was supposed to reimburse me their shares when we exchanged gifts on Christmas Eve, as was our tradition. But another dive into Amanda's backed-up messages revealed they had no intention of doing so. "Natalie won't cancel the reservation even if she finds out," Kyle had written. "She cares too much about what everyone thinks. She'll probably book a flight out and pretend everything's fine. And we still get our free Christmas vacation," Amanda had replied, adding a laughing emoji. I stared at those messages for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and texted Amanda a single reply to her earlier frantic messages. "Merry Christmas. Let them think everything was fine. Let them think I was hurt but accepting it. Let them think I was predictable, reliable Natalie who would never rock the boat." I sat at my desk and made a list. Every time I'd covered expenses, 4 family members. Every loan never repaid. Every sacrifice I'd made. Every time I'd been overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted. The list ran to 3 pages, single-spaced. Then I made a second list. Things I wanted. Respect. Appreciation. Reciprocity. Honesty. The simple dignity of being treated as a full and equal member of the family. I called my therapist, Dr. Michelle, who I'd been seeing for the past year to work on my people-pleasing tendencies and boundary issues as she called them. She answered despite it being after hours on Christmas Eve. "Natalie, what's happened?" I explained the situation, my voice surprisingly steady. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. "What you're describing is a profound betrayal," she finally said. "Your reaction is not only justified, it's healthy. The anger you're feeling is appropriate. The question is, what do you want to do with it?" "I want to stop being a doormat. I want consequences for their actions. I want them to understand they can't treat me this way anymore." "Those are all valid desires. What specific actions are you considering?" I told her my plan, the 2-part response I was formulating. She listened without interruption. "Will these actions move you toward healing or deeper into hurt?" she asked when I finished. "Both, maybe. Initially more hurt, but ultimately healing because I'll finally be standing up for myself. Then, I support you. Just remember, you're making these choices for yourself, not to punish them. The goal isn't revenge, it's self-respect." After we hung up, I felt validated. My reaction wasn't excessive, my anger wasn't unwarranted, and my plan wasn't unreasonable given the circumstances. I opened the resort's website again, and clicked Contact Us. Then I picked up my phone and dialed the number. Pinecrest Mountain Resort. This is Melanie speaking. How can I assist you? Hi Melanie. My name is Natalie Morgan. I have a reservation for 6 cabins beginning tomorrow, December 25. Yes, Miss Morgan. I have your reservation here. The premium Christmas package for 17 guests. Is there something I can help you with? I need to cancel the entire reservation. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. May I ask the reason for cancellation? We might be able to accommodate changes instead. I hesitated only briefly. The reservation was for a family trip, but there's been a change of plans. The family decided to exclude me after I'd already paid for everything. A pause. I see. I'm very sorry to hear that. Her voice had softened with genuine sympathy. Let me check our cancellation policy for your booking. I heard keyboard clicks in the background. Normally, our Christmas packages are non-refundable this close to the date, but given the circumstances, let me speak with my manager. I was placed on hold for several minutes. When Melanie returned, her voice was warm. Miss Morgan, my manager has approved a full refund to your credit card. The funds should be returned within 3 to 5 business days. Thank you, I said, relief flooding through me. That was $15,500 I couldn't afford to lose. There's one more thing, Melanie continued. Your family is still planning to arrive tomorrow, correct? Yes. As far as I know. Would you like us to let them know the reservation has been canceled when they arrive, or would you prefer to inform them yourself? I considered this. Actually, if it's not too much trouble, I'd prefer if they found out when they arrive. Another pause. I understand. We can certainly handle that discreetly. Thank you, Melanie. You've been very kind. You're welcome, Miss Morgan. And if I may say so, I hope you find a way to enjoy your holiday despite these difficult circumstances. After hanging up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Step 1 complete. Now for step 2. I set my alarm for 6:30 the next morning, then began gathering what I would need. Documents proving property ownership, financial records, keys, my passport, personal mementos I couldn't bear to lose. As I worked, I booked a solo vacation to Bali, departing the following evening. I'd always wanted to go but had never prioritized my own travel dreams over family obligations. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd be spending about the same amount on my solo trip as I'd been prepared to lose on the family trip. I wrote a detailed letter to my family explaining exactly why I was taking these actions, careful to focus on facts rather than emotions. I set up an automatic email to be sent to all of them once I was on my flight. Then I made 2 final calls. One to a locksmith who charged extra for Christmas Day service, and one to a moving company that advertised anytime, anywhere availability. Both confirmed they could meet my needs, at premium holiday rates of course. Money well spent, in my opinion. As I finally went to bed in the early hours of Christmas morning, I felt something I hadn't expected: peace. Tomorrow would be difficult, but necessary. And for the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself over everyone else's expectations and demands. My alarm buzzed at 6:30 sharp on Christmas morning. I'd slept surprisingly well, waking with purpose and clarity rather than the fog of sadness from the day before. I showered, dressed in comfortable clothes, and ate a quick breakfast. Then I got to work. The locksmith arrived at 7:30, right on schedule, an older man named Frank, who didn't ask questions beyond what was necessary for the job. I explained that I needed all the locks changed on the house, including the front door, back door, side entrance, and garage. He nodded and got to work. Family issues? He asked about halfway through, his tone conversational rather than judgmental. You could say that, I replied. He nodded again. Holidays bring out the best and worst in families. Been married 42 years, and my wife's family still drives me to change the locks every now and then. He winked, and I found myself smiling for the first time in what felt like days. By 9, Frank was done. He handed me the new keys and wished me a Merry Christmas. I thanked him sincerely and added a generous tip to his already substantial holiday rate. The moving company arrived at 9:30. 2 strong young men named Derek and Justin, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else on Christmas morning, but remained professionally cheerful. I directed them to help me move certain items from the house to the garage: my parents' clothing, personal items, and some furniture, Kyle's gaming setup, Amanda's extensive beauty collection, and designer clothes. We're doing some renovations, I explained, when Justin raised an eyebrow at the unusual task. The family's away, and I want to surprise them with the progress when they return. They worked efficiently, and by 11, the garage was neatly stacked with labeled boxes and furniture items. I placed a large envelope on top containing my letter and the new house keys, then locked the garage with its separate key, which I would leave in a hidden spot only the family knew about. Inside a house, I set up the small security cameras I'd ordered with express delivery earlier in the week. One covering the front door, one for the back, and one in the main living area, all connected to an app on my phone that would allow me to monitor the house remotely. Next came the financial untangling. I logged into our shared family account and transferred my portion to my personal account. I removed my credit card information from all family subscription services. I changed passwords on accounts that were technically mine, but that the family had been using freely. By early afternoon, my suitcase was packed for Bali, the house was secured, and everything was in place for the family's eventual return. I took one last walk through the home I had shared with my parents for most of my adult life, not out of financial necessity, but out of a misplaced sense of duty and connection. The house had been left to me by my grandmother 5 years ago, much to everyone's surprise, including mine. She'd always had a soft spot for me, perhaps recognizing a kindred spirit in the family overlooker. I'd invited my parents to continue living there, never charging them rent, despite taking on the mortgage payments myself. Another fact conveniently forgotten when family finances were discussed. As I stood in the entryway, keys in hand, my phone began buzzing with incoming calls and texts. They'd arrived at the resort and discovered the canceled reservation, right on schedule. I didn't answer immediately, taking my time to lock up and load my suitcase into my car. Then, I sat in the driveway and began reading through the messages. Mom, Natalie, there's been some mistake with the reservation. Please call me immediately. Dad, your mother's upset. Fix whatever you did with the resort booking. Amanda, what did you do? They said you canceled everything. Call me now. Kyle, WTF Natalie. There's nowhere to stay and everything's booked. Aunt Susan. We're all standing in the resort lobby with nowhere to go. Please call someone. And so on. Message after message of increasing panic and anger. No acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just expectations that I would solve the problem I'd created. I scrolled through them all, then typed a single reply to the family group text, the one I hadn't been included in until this emergency. I know you plan to leave without me. I know you never intended to reimburse me for the trip. I've canceled the reservation and received a full refund. Enjoy your Christmas. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My phone rang and rang with incoming calls, which I declined one after another. The text messages flew in faster than I could read them. Mom, Natalie, you're overreacting. It wasn't like that. Dad, this is completely unacceptable behavior. Amanda, I can't believe you'd ruin Christmas for everyone over a stupid misunderstanding. Aunt Karen, we're stranded in Colorado with nowhere to stay. How could you be so selfish? I let them rant, watching the messages accumulate without responding further. Let them feel a fraction of the helplessness and exclusion I'd felt. Let them understand that actions have consequences. After about 20 minutes, the tone began to shift. Mom, Natalie, please. We're sorry if you felt excluded. We can talk about this. Dad, your mother's crying. At least tell us what you expect us to do now. Amanda. Okay. Fine. We shouldn't have left without you, but this is extreme. Where are we supposed to go? I texted back one more time. I'm sure you'll figure something out. You're all so resourceful when it comes to planning things without me. Then I silenced my phone, started my car, and drove to the airport for my flight to Bali, feeling lighter with each mile that separated me from the family that had taken me for granted for the last time. The aftermath unfolded largely while I was in Bali, where I spent a peaceful week reconnecting with myself, and considering what I wanted my life to look like going forward. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb mode, checking it only once a day to ensure there were no true emergencies, and to monitor the security cameras at the house. What I saw through those cameras and in the accumulated messages painted a picture of chaos and desperation. According to cousin Rachel, who sent me private messages that seemed genuinely remorseful, the scene at the resort had been apocalyptic. With no reservation and no available accommodations during the Christmas holiday, the family had been forced to split up. Some drove to the nearest larger town to find hotel rooms at exorbitant last-minute rates. Others crammed into the one small cabin that Uncle Robert managed to secure through a business connection. The Christmas dinner they'd been looking forward to was replaced by takeout pizza eaten in cramped quarters. The group chat I could now see exploded with blame and recriminations. Amanda and Kyle initially tried to maintain that I had misunderstood their intentions, but as the discomfort and financial reality set in, the truth emerged. Fine. We plan to leave without her, Amanda finally admitted. But she's always so controlling about these trips, always making everything about her feelings. We just wanted one Christmas without walking on eggshells. My mother, surprisingly, defended me. She paid for everything, Amanda. She's been paying for these trips for years, and we've barely reimbursed her. What did you expect her to do when she found out? Not ruin Christmas for everyone, Amanda shot back. I think we ruined it first, Kyle wrote, showing unexpected insight. For her, at least. The family tried calling me hundreds of times over those days. I didn't answer. Their messages evolved from angry to pleading to bargaining. They cut their trip short, heading home after just 2 days of holiday misery. On December 2007, my security cameras showed them arriving at the house, luggage and all, only to discover they couldn't get in. I watched as my father tried his key repeatedly, as my mother peered through windows as Amanda paced the front lawn making animated phone calls. Eventually, someone thought to check the garage, finding my note and the new keys. I observed them reading my letter together, faces falling as they absorbed the detailed account of how they had treated me over the years, culminating in the Christmas abandonment. I'd made it clear in the letter. This was my house, left to me by grandmother. I'd allowed them to live there rent-free while I covered the mortgage. That arrangement was now over. They could stay temporarily while making other living arrangements, but I would be charging market-rate rent beginning February 1st. When I finally returned from Bali on January 3rd, refreshed and resolute, I was prepared for the confrontation that awaited me. I pulled into the driveway, noticing all their cars were present. They'd known I was coming home today. The rent conditions I'd outlined required us to meet. They were waiting in the living room, a tableau of familiar faces wearing unfamiliar expressions, uncertainty, anxiety, even fear, not emotions my family typically directed at me. Natalie, my mother began, rising from the couch, we need to talk about what you've done. No, I said calmly, remaining standing just inside the doorway. We need to talk about what you've all done for years. This is ridiculous, Amanda interjected. So, we left without you on a trip. It was immature, fine. But changing the locks? Threatening to evict your own family? Who does that? Someone who's finally had enough, I replied. Someone who's tired of being exploited and taken for granted. Someone who's setting boundaries that should have been set long ago. Exploited. My father scoffed. That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? I pulled out my phone and played a recording I'd made before leaving. A compilation of their messages planning to exclude me while still expecting me to foot the bill for their Christmas vacation. Their faces changed as they listened to their own voices discussing me as a problem to be managed, a resource to be used, rather than a family member to be respected. When the recording ended, the room was silent. Then, surprisingly, it was Ryan, Amanda's fiancé, who spoke first. I've been sitting here listening to all of you for days, and honestly, I'm appalled. If this is how you treat family, I'm not sure I want to be part of it. Amanda gaped at him. You're taking her side? There shouldn't be sides in a family, he replied. But if there are, then yes, I'm on the side of the person who was wronged. Kyle shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He's right. What we did was messed up. All of it, not just the trip. He looked at me directly. I'm sorry, Natalie. Really sorry. One by one, they began to acknowledge what they'd done, though some more grudgingly than others. My mother cried, my father looked ashamed, and Amanda vacillated between defensive and contrite. The conversation lasted hours, dredging up years of family patterns and dynamics. I remained calm but firm, making it clear that things would be different going forward. I outlined my terms: rent payments for those continuing to live in the house, repayment plans for outstanding loans, and clear expectations about mutual respect and consideration. And if we don't agree to these terms, my father asked, a hint of his usual authority returning to his voice, then you'll need to find somewhere else to live by February 1, I replied simply. This is non-negotiable. In the days that followed, the family fractured and realigned in ways I hadn't anticipated. My parents, faced with the financial reality of paying market-rate rent on the house, plus repaying what they owed me, decided to accelerate their long-discussed plans to downsize. They found a small condo closer to my father's office and moved out by mid-January. Amanda and Ryan had a series of intense discussions that ultimately led to them postponing their wedding while they reassessed their relationship. Amanda's behavior during the Christmas incident had revealed aspects of her character that troubled Ryan deeply. She moved in with a friend, and our relationship remained strained but civil. Kyle, surprisingly, asked if he could continue living in the house while paying the designated rent. "I want to make things right," he said, "and I want to get to know my sister again." We established a genuine roommate relationship that slowly evolved into a real sibling bond. Extended family members reached out individually in the weeks that followed. Some apologized sincerely, acknowledging their role in the family dynamics that had marginalized me. Others remained distant, uncomfortable with the disruption to the status quo. Aunt Susan never spoke to me again. Uncle Robert sent a heartfelt letter of apology and a check covering what he estimated he'd cost me over the years. Cousin Rachel and I began meeting for coffee regularly, rebuilding our relationship on more equal footing. My parents struggled to adjust to the new reality, but made genuine efforts. My mother called weekly, careful to ask about my life and interests, rather than just talking about herself. My father sent awkward but sincere text messages checking in on me. Small steps but meaningful ones. The most surprising outcome was with Amanda. After 3 months of minimal contact, she asked to meet. Over dinner at a neutral restaurant, she admitted that the incident had forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself. "I was jealous of you," she confessed. "You've always been the capable one, the one with everything together. I felt like I had to compete to prove I was better somehow. It was easier to push you away than to admit I admired you." I didn't know if I believed her entirely, but I appreciated the effort. "We have a lot of history to work through." I told her, "It won't happen overnight." "I know," she nodded. "But I'd like to try, if you're willing." Family therapy became part of our journey forward. Not everyone participated consistently, but those who did began to understand the toxic patterns we'd all been caught in for so long. Through it all, I maintained my boundaries firmly, but fairly. No more loans without clear repayment terms. No more taking on family expenses without acknowledgement. No more silencing myself to keep the peace. It wasn't always easy. There were setbacks and arguments, moments when old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But I remained committed to the new dynamics I'd established, and slowly, a different kind of family relationship began to emerge from the ashes of the old one. 6 months after the Christmas incident, I sat in Dr. Michelle's office for what would be one of our final regular sessions. I'd been working intensively on my recovery from family trauma, building a stronger sense of self-worth and establishing healthier relationships. "How do you feel about your progress?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. "Lighter," I finally said. "Like I've put down a burden I didn't even realize I was carrying. I still have moments of doubt and guilt, but they're less frequent now. And I'm getting better at recognizing when I'm falling into old patterns." The journey hadn't been easy. After setting those initial boundaries, I'd gone through periods of intense grief for the family relationship I'd always wanted but never had. There were days I questioned my decisions, wondered if I'd overreacted, felt guilty for causing pain to people I loved despite everything. But therapy helped me recognize those thoughts as conditioned responses from years of emotional manipulation. Dr. Michelle guided me through techniques to acknowledge those feelings without letting them dictate my actions. "And your support network," she prompted. "Growing stronger every day," I replied with a smile. "My friends have been amazing, especially once I started being honest about my family situation instead of making excuses for them. I've reconnected with college friends I'd lost touch with, and I've made new connections through that photography class I started taking." Building a non-family support network had been crucial to my healing. For too long, I'd prioritized family relationships at the expense of friendships and personal interests. Now I had a weekly book club, a photography group that went on monthly excursions, and several close friends who checked in regularly. During those 6 months, I maintained limited contact with my family, individual connections rather than group gatherings, clear boundaries about what I would and wouldn't discuss, firm expectations about how I deserve to be treated. And the house, doctor? Michelle asked. Still mine, I said with a confident smile that would have been impossible a year earlier. Kyle's still renting one of the rooms, and I've rented another to a graduate student. The rental income covers the mortgage, and I'm saving to renovate the kitchen this fall. I'd reclaimed my space, physically and emotionally. The house that had once felt like a site of obligation now felt like a true home. I'd redecorate it, choosing colors and styles that reflected my personality, rather than preserving the family aesthetic I'd always accepted without question. My solo traveling had continued as well. After Bali, I'd taken weekend trips to places I'd always wanted to visit but had put off. Chicago for the architecture, New Orleans for the music, Portland for the food scene, small adventures that built my confidence and expanded my world. And what about reconciliation, doctor? Michelle asked, where do you stand on that? I've been thinking about this question for months. I'm open to it, but on my terms. With some family members, there's been real progress. Kyle and I have a better relationship now than we ever did growing up. My parents are trying in their way. Others, like Amanda, it's more complicated. And with some, like Aunt Susan, I've accepted that reconciliation may never happen. That sounds like a healthy approach, doctor. Michelle nodded. Reconciliation doesn't mean returning to old patterns. It means creating new, healthier relationships where possible and accepting when it's not. As summer turned to fall, I decided it was time to test the waters of a family gathering. I invited select family members to a small dinner party at my house. Not everyone, just those who had shown genuine remorse and made real efforts to change. My parents, Kyle, cousin Rachel and her husband, Uncle Robert, and, after some deliberation, Amanda. I set clear expectations in the invitation. This was a fresh start, an opportunity to build something new. Past grievances wouldn't be discussed at the dinner table. Anyone uncomfortable with these terms was welcome to decline. To my surprise and cautious delight, everyone accepted. The dinner wasn't perfect by any means. There were awkward moments, old tensions that bubbled up briefly before being redirected. But there were also genuine conversations, authentic interest in each other's lives, and moments of connection that felt new and promising. My mother brought a photo album I'd never seen before, filled with pictures of me growing up. I realized we don't celebrate you enough, she said quietly as we looked through it together. I want to do better. My father helped me grill in the backyard, asking about my work with interests that seemed sincere rather than perfunctory. Kyle proudly showed off the kitchen shelves he'd installed, his way of contributing to the home we now shared. Amanda brought a peace offering, a framed photo of us as children, arms around each other, smiling without complexity or competition. I found this while packing, she said. I'd forgotten we used to be friends. After dinner, as we sat in the living room with coffee and dessert, my father raised his cup in a toast. To Natalie, he said. For having the courage to demand better, from all of us. We didn't deserve a second chance, but we're grateful for it. The acknowledgement brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Not from lingering pain, but from the recognition that true healing was possible. Even if the relationship would never be what I'd once hoped for. That Christmas was different from any other in my memory. Smaller, more intimate, held at a neutral location, rather than the family home. Everyone contributed equally to the expenses and preparations. There were no dramatic exclusions, no manipulation, no taking anyone for granted. We exchanged thoughtful, personal gifts, rather than expensive displays. We shared memories, both difficult and fond, with new honesty. We acknowledged the journey we'd been on, and the work still to be done. Not everyone from the original group was there. Some relationships had proven too damaged to repair, at least for now. Aunt Susan sent a card but declined the invitation. Some cousins chose to celebrate elsewhere, but those who came seemed genuinely committed to creating something healthier than what had existed before. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey from last Christmas to this one. From the devastating discovery of intentional exclusion, to the careful reconstruction of relationships worth saving. From being the family doormat to a woman with boundaries, self-respect, and the courage to demand better. The deepest lesson I'd learned wasn't about family dynamics, or even about standing up for myself, though those were important. It was about the difference between love that diminishes and love that enhances. Between relationships that drain your spirit and those that fill it. Between accepting scraps of affection and requiring genuine respect. Sometimes love requires distance. Sometimes healing means letting go. Sometimes the family you need isn't the one you were born into, but the one you build around you, person by person, connection by connection. I don't regret what I did that Christmas morning when I canceled the reservation and changed the locks. It was the most difficult decision I'd ever made, but also the most necessary. It wasn't about revenge, but about finally valuing myself enough to require better treatment. Some might call it extreme. I call it the first day of a new life, a life where I matter, where my feelings count, where love is demonstrated through actions, not just claimed in words. If you're watching this and recognize yourself in my story, please know you're not alone. Family relationships are complex, but they should never come at the cost of your self-worth. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what hurts you, even when, especially when, it's family. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? What was your turning point? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more authentic conversations about family dynamics and personal growth. Your support helps this channel reach others who might need to hear they're not alone. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve to be valued, respected, and truly seen.